Look, we don't need to get into where I've been or what I've been doing beyond the obvious not here and not this. Let's just agree to enjoy the time we do have together when we have it. Of course, as it does, a lot has happened while I was gone. If I had a better memory, this is the part where I'd list some of those things, but all I can come up with is that furry conventions are apparently out to get us and Yeezys are ruined again. But speaking of ruining things, yep, you guessed it, we gotta talk about Twitter. So without further ado, this is the Mouthful, I am Bravado, and there's a question that needs an answer. Whether you love it, hate it, or somewhere in between, Twitter has been one of the main online hubs of furry activity for over a decade. Plenty of folks are more than happy to write it off as a place not worth their time or attention, and that's fine. I can't tell y'all how to live your lives. What I can tell you is that Twitter has been a crucial fixture in my and many others' furry experience, and now, as we bear witness to its uncertain future, I reckon it's only fair to give credit where credit's due and figure out just what it is about the Twitter formula that works. Now, I'm not here to try to convince you that Twitter is or was ever perfect. There's a lot of bad to be found there, as with pretty much any unified global social media platform, whether large-scale things like misinformation campaigns and hate speech or more localized activity like call-outs and outrage baiting. And if those are things that you're not able to deal with or overlook, I respect that. But if you can manage to curate the experience in a way that works for you, there's a lot of good to be found as well. While Twitter certainly wasn't the first social media platform widely used by furries, it's one that manages to be a lot of things for a lot of people in ways that other platforms weren't and still aren't. Folks are more than happy to go on about how it's not good at being an art gallery or a blog or a video site, but the reality is that it's good enough at those things while also being fairly easy to use, so it's become a sort of repository for everything. And while I know archival and searchability aren't up to the standards of more traditional sites, I think the emphasis on short, ephemeral content is ultimately the reason so many people enjoy the service. If you've ever had a blog or maintained a gallery or anything else that's hyper-focused on a specific media or format, it can feel as though writing posts or uploading artwork is the only proper way to participate. Of course, that's not strictly true, but it doesn't change the fact that those sites are built around creating libraries of shared content and prioritizing the people who create said content. This also implies a set bar for what constitutes good enough, which may result in someone second-guessing their own abilities and never posting anything at all. But that bar don't exist on Twitter. While you're certainly encouraged to share quality, lovingly crafted content, whether video or photography or art or even threads of longer form writing, you're just as welcome to post whatever random nonsense tumbles out of your brain and onto your screen. I am, of course, talking about posting. And while Twitter didn't invent the concept, it certainly made it more accessible, resulting in a delightful juxtaposition of low and high effort, of the earnest and the absurd. This flexibility, combined with its inherent brevity, is part of what makes Twitter so approachable. Of course, whatever you post, it's kind of irrelevant if there's no audience, and that's why the widespread adaptation of Twitter within furry is so significant. It's most obviously a boon to furry creators because there's such a large number of potential eyes not just within the furry space but on Twitter at large, but it also means that furry Twitter is a relatively robust hub for anyone in the fandom to find others with shared interests. This is all bolstered by intuitive ways to share content and participate in conversations because there's a better chance that someone you might want to interact with will show up on your timeline thanks to someone else you already know. It's not that you can't discover new people on other platforms, but it's not really prioritized either. Doing so usually means digging through your friends' favorites or follows or the comments on their posts, and that's awful cumbersome compared to randomly seeing someone new and kinda interesting as you scroll through your timeline and tapping on their little icon. And whether specifically by design or not, profiles on Twitter offer so much more than pretty much any other social media. Of course, there's the standard fare like their avatar and bio and where they are, but it's the timeline that really pulls things together because it offers a more earnest look at what they're about. Do they write a lot, mostly retweet, commission a lot of art, take photos? Who do they interact with and how? There's a lot to learn there if you're so inclined. But it makes sense because while Twitter wants you to see what its users are doing, it also gives you a lot of insight into who the users are. And given how much of our existence revolves around trying to find our people, this can be an invaluable tool. Now, I'll admit that I'm looking at this with rose-tinted specs, but I can also say with confidence that connecting on Twitter either because I liked what someone else posted or because they liked what I posted was a first step to many of the friendships I have today. Positive reactions to things I made helped push me to try new things, and when those were super weird and people still responded well to them, it was a huge boost of confidence that helped me to get more comfortable in my own skin. But while all this has been hugely important to me, there's still one more thing: the discourse. I don't mean what shows up in the sidebar, I mean the inherent ability to track what's going on not just in the real world, but the furry community and how they intersect. No matter how you feel about furry drama, having an awareness of what's being discussed at the fandom level, or at least a place to find out, is a good thing. The point is that for me and many others, Twitter is a lifeline to furry culture, and one that, here in 2022, still has no real alternative. So what happens if it goes away? Well, to be fair, there's no guarantee this will happen soon or at all, at least as of the time of recording. It's possible we'll see a gradual decline in users as they seek out platforms that better meet their needs, but probably not to any significant degree unless some life-altering decisions are made, like that time Tumblr banned adult content. Then again, given the new leadership, still, I'm gonna stick around and see what happens, partially because I have too much time and effort invested to just give up on it, but also, while many of the proposed changes are admittedly very dumb, the tangible impact they'll have on furry Twitter is difficult to predict, if they even last. But that doesn't mean I'm not also keeping an eye on other options. I've set up or rebooted a few profiles elsewhere and started adding friends again just so I can more easily re-find them if Twitter implodes, because if that happens, there's going to be a painful time of fragmentation that leaves our social network in shambles as folks start and stop using different services until something gains real traction. But what will that something even be? The frustrating answer is that there's no obvious answer, and if there was, we'd all be using it already. There are plenty of alternatives waiting in the wings, each with its own take on what would constitute a more perfect Twitter, but I wouldn't consider any of them a truly compelling alternative, especially compared to the platform that is still very much alive and kicking. So maybe we need to ask a different question. If Twitter disappears, where will the brands go? No, for real, hear me out. It sounds counterintuitive because furries can be so passionately anti-capitalist and notoriously resistant to being pandered to, but we also want a lot of the same things from our social media platform of choice. Wide reach, minimal volatility, useful moderation tools, and stable technology. A sure sign of a platform approaching ubiquity is that big names start allocating for it in their social media budgets, and that's unironically a good thing. There's nothing wrong with niche social networks, and they certainly have their place as well, but what I really want to know is what new icon will replace that little bird on corporate websites across the internet. Admittedly, this has been an awful lot of talking just to say we'll see what happens, but I'll be danged if that ain't life. For now, stick around on Twitter unless you simply can't bear it anymore, stand up some profiles on other sites so you don't disappear if Twitter does, keep an eye on what the brands are doing, and maybe download your archives so you have a local copy of your posts if that's your thing. Oh, and don't be a jerk to people who are justifiably panicked about the potential loss of a major fixture in their social or professional or furry lives. This is the part where I'd normally talk about liking and subscribing, so do that. I don't really know what's next for me here on YouTube, but I do know that I can't guarantee a consistent schedule for something that takes this much time and effort, and for which ideas have become increasingly few and far between. That said, I have no intention to stop completely either, so I guess, like before, we'll see. In the meantime, if you have a question you'd like me to sink my teeth into, leave a comment here or hit me up over on, well, Twitter. I'll also be at Midwest Fur Fest, so come say hi if you see me. Thanks for watching, take care of yourselves, and I'll catch y'all later.